Kia ora. Call Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Chair. Mihi nui ki te whare paramata. I'd just like to take a brief call and start with the licence that the previous chair gave us to refer to te reo issues in the preamble. It's been a privilege to hear the debate. Te reo rangatira is always an asset in this House, and for those of us who are not speakers, we can learn. And listening and learning is a great privilege, and I can see why this bill, this preamble, there was enthusiasm for the reo. I heard the chair of the Select Committee explain why they believed it wasn't possible for the bill to be in two languages, but I just tautoko the comments of the previous speaker about the importance of, if it's a matter of resource, if it's a matter of time, then surely the Parliament, if nowhere else, should find the resource to do the right thing. And I think we are talking about te reo Māori, the first national language of Aotearoa, and I'm owning myself that when I designed a member's bill, I didn't get it translated into te reo either, and so I'm not saying that any of us is any better than anyone else. Public Works Act amendment bill that I put up should have been in te reo as well. But it's a lesson and a learning for all of us that this bill, the Papawai bill, should have actually had this opportunity, and that it would have made the people very happy. I recognise that the Māori Affairs Committee is not responsible for the constraints, but it means that the rest of us, we all need to get up and advocate. We all need to stand up for making sure that all bills have this opportunity, and that we don't put the Māori Affairs Select Committee in the position of having to fight for this. It's an issue for all citizens of Aotearoa that te reo should be available for these bills. And I found the kōrero very interesting with the word preamble not existing. There's no kupu in the reo for preamble. Perhaps it's time that preamble was a flexible word that was also that could be explained in English differently as well, because a lot of people in English don't know what a preamble is either. And in fact, many of the ways in which our laws are designed are actually extremely alienating, and no one knows what on earth you're talking about outside this place. So, including inside this place, some of us are not scholars of Latin or Greek, and we like plain English alongside te reo Māori. And I think there are ways in which both these languages are more than capable of describing things beautifully and clearly in terms of their purpose and intent, and what is the purpose of a preamble. However, I'd first like to mihi on to Papawai Marae. I was recently at Papawai Marae, and I can see this bill which relates to their trustees is an important bill for them, and that it's important that we recognise that they want change for the structure of their board. And in the preamble, it does talk about the relationships between Papawai and Kaikokirikiri trust boards and the Bishop of Te Opoko o Te Eka. And I'm not a scholar, but I know that the head of the fish is an important and delicious space. So I think that it's important that we honour their intention and wish to have a better relationship with their trust boards and the Bishop of the head of the fish and the tangata whenua of the Wairarapa. The preamble also talks about the tangata whenua, and the bill talks about, and the Māori Affairs Select Committee, about the definition, and I'd have to say that fools rush in where angels fear to tread if I start trying to talk about how our tangata whenua should be defined and who should define it. I can get myself into a ridiculous space if I tried to do that. But there is an interesting kōrero in the Select Committee report that does talk about the reason for the description being tangata whenua of Wairarapa, and that seems appropriate because it's an inclusive way of allowing everyone whose whakapapa connects in whatever way to these two trusts, that they actually get included in the distribution of funds for the tangata whenua of Wairarapa. I've heard Pākehā say that tangata whenua. I've always strongly disputed that, because I don't know anyone in my culture who describes their whakapapa as being from Papatuanuku directly through their whakapapa heritage. We are certainly connected to this place in our own ways, but we're not tangata whenua in the sense that we do not describe our spirituality and whakapapa as directly connected to Papatuanuku. And I think we should be honest about that instead of try to co-opt it. But that's more of a reflection, Mr. Chair.
Catherine Delahunt.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I won't take the whole time, but I do want to just talk about the preamble a bit more because it does facilitate some changes that Papawai and Kaikokirikiri Trust have wanted. And I think it's important that there's a nomination process that is just. And it's good to see the work that went on this bill because, you know, there were Bill of Rights issues around it. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, that they were raised and I understand they were addressed. I think that's really important because there are mentions of the United Nations Declaration on People with Disabilities. And I think it's very important that we do justice to all people at all times within legislation, that we don't ignore those things. And so the bill has definitely obviously been improved at the Select Committee in terms of recognising those Bill of Rights issues, because if it's going to be fairer and robust, those are words, it's really important that the board member process is fair and robust and does not, as much as possible, breach the Bill of Rights in terms of its assumptions about people's capacity to participate. I really think that Papawai and Kaikokirikiri, I don't know much about the Kaikokirikiri Trust, but I do know a little bit about Papawai from being there recently. Most historic, most significant Wairarapa marae. And what came out for me when I went there relating to this preamble was I held a public meeting that night after I'd visited the marae about water in the Rohe and about the state of the Ruamahonga River. And some people from the marae, Papawai people, came to my public meeting and said, we don't have enough water, we have real problems with water. And it's always really sobering in the 21st century when people don't have water. And this marae are trying to modernise their trust structure, but what I heard that night was they still do not have access to things that other people take for granted. They have real problems with accessing their water. And I think of that marae and so many others where I've heard stories about problems with fresh water, problems with sewage. These bills are useful, you know, because they help to improve the structures so that people can get into a situation where they can operate and make decisions effectively. But it doesn't necessarily give them any more resources to do it. And I was very, very concerned that night to hear that that marae was struggling with water. So when we were talking about the sustainability of the river and all the rest of it, they were saying, well, we don't even have water. 21st century. It was pretty grueling. For a marae that held the first Tangata Whenua Parliament in Aotearoa in the 21st century not to have that. This bill will be an improvement for them, but I hope it addresses and helps to address when it comes to the long-term development of land, which is referred to in the preamble. I hope it also addresses their ability for their basic human right to water, and I was very disturbed by that. However, the Green Party is very happy to support this bill. I'd like to see every bill in the reo, and I'd like to see this House, all of us, work together to achieve that goal. Kia ora tātou.